To begin making your letter, you have to make sure you have guidelines in this project. We want to make sure your letter is nice and even and centered in the page. So the guidelines don't have to be exactly the measurements I use, but what I'm going to do is show you how to mirror your measurements and how to get these lines to help you make your letter. If we look at this here, my bottom and top lines are both 1.5 inches from the page here, and then from the sides it's 2.5 inches. Then this is a 12 by 12 paper, so my center line is always going to be 6 inches no matter what. On this piece of paper here, I am going to make my letter a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is, instead of measuring at 1.5 inches, I'm going to measure at 2.5 inches. So I'll go 2.5 here, then my center line will be at 6, as it's a 12-inch piece of paper. And then I will measure at 2.5 here. Then I will go to this side and make the same measurements. So again, from the top, 2.5 and 6, and then 2.5 down here. The next thing I am going to do is make a line that goes all the way across my paper for these measurements. There's my center line. I have my baseline and the top line here. The next I need to go how narrow my letter is going to be. So I'm going to do this one and at 3.5. And just 3.5 from each edge of the paper. And now I'll connect these from top to bottom. You don't have to go all the way up. You just go from line to line and line to line. So now what I have here is I have a box that I could draw my letter in. I have my midline for the letters that need the middle line, and I have my top and bottom, and then my letter will go and fill this area. You can make your letters more square, you can make them narrower and taller. It depends on what letter you have and how you want to make your design. Now what you're going to do is you're going to sketch out your letter. You could see when I drew my S here, if we zoom in, you could see all my sketch marks, how I was planning this out and kind of changing the shape of the S. And S is a little bit more of a difficult letter. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a J, a little bit simpler of a letter. So I have to kind of go into drawing this with a plan, and then just start drawing my idea. I start off very loose, very sketchy at first. And you don't have to go exactly to your guidelines. If you need to go out, that's fine. When you're doing curves, you should always be using the natural motion of your wrist. So you can see I just turned my paper upside down. And you want to give these letters some thickness. They shouldn't be super skinny. And it doesn't have to be a consistent thickness the whole way. And you got to decide what works for your design. And I could decide to do that. I could decide maybe to raise this up a little bit. It all kind of depends on how you want it to look. So make sure that you decide how big you want your letter, how much space your letter is going to take when you do this. And then from there, you will sketch out your letter. Once you're happy with your letter and you're happy with these lines, then you're going to go back, make these lines darker so when you trace it onto your good paper, it's easy for you to see. And that is how we do our letters for the Zentangle project.